Alright, you wrongins. Right, in this tutorial, we're going to go through a walk cycle. Now, in my humble opinion, I think a walk cycle is one of the hardest things to pull off in animation. How should I put it? To pull off relatively good or accurate. So this is one I created anyway in 3ds Max. Now, some of the principles I applied to this animation you could use it for Maya or Blender. If you haven't checked out my run cycle tutorial, I would strongly suggest, you check out that tutorial first and do that tutorial, or well, apply some of the principles I've shown in that tutorial, because it's going to be easier for you to deal with that first before you try and tackle walk. Because as I say, I genuinely believe a walk cycle is one of the hardest things to accomplish in animation. Now, the key to a walk cycle is the pelvis movement, or even in any animation, and a lot of people overlook that. It's the pelvis. Now, you see some animations and they don't, and the animators don't really animate the pelvis. The pelvis is the key part of the animation. Now, if you look at this from the back, and if you look at this animation here, if you see when he moves, let's put a helper here. Right. See this? There's it's sloped at that angle, and if you look, the opposite with his shoulders, and that follows through for each swing of the animation. See that? So when we go back again, that swing, that's an important part of your animation. So it's like counterbalanced. But also, another thing you have to remember in a walk cycle is the balance. So if you look at it, he leans over, so his center of gravity is here. Otherwise you'd fall over. So something you have to remember as well when you're doing your animation is think about your center of gravity. Now, I'm going to go through this animation here again and go through some of how I set it up again. And again, basically the same way I set it up here is kind of the same way I did the run cycle. So let's just go back to an earlier iteration of this in creation. So let's just open up a new one. Let's have a look. It's halfway. I think this should do it. So if we click on, let's hide that. I can't remember the hotkeys. I'm sure you guys would remember it. Now, what I do initially with any of my animations, I block it out. Blocking it out basically means I concentrate only on the key frames. The key frames first, usually either from scratch or from reference. Now, this animation walk cycle was the reference I took or looked at. Was from one of the best animation books out there. If you haven't got it, I suggest you get it. It's called Cartoon Animation of Preston Blair. It's got lots of examples of walk cycles. Obviously, you've got the MyBridge stuff, whatever. But I feel that this is a great place to start with your walk cycle. It's got lots of examples of different animations. Anyway, let's get back on point. So you've got your key animations frames. You've got your walks, your key moments, and if you look at it, I've got 12 frames, that's all. And if I play it really quickly, it just looks really fast. So what I would suggest you do as well is when you're doing your animations, concentrate on a walk cycle. Concentrate on the legs first, and then you forget about the torso. And concentrate, especially in the 3D animation, concentrate on look at it from a 2D plane. Forget about the movement of it going left to right and the balance and all that. Forget that. That's like stuff that you do after you've got the rough blocking out movement fleshed out. Now, what I also do with these when I'm blocking out my animations is I use guides as well, so I know where the height is and where the ground is or whatever. So you can use the tape measure guide or whatever to do that with 3ds Max. So, as I say, we've got that here. Now, if we look at it from the front, and then again we play it, it's just very simple. But this is a very good place to start. So you just get that movement sorted out first. And then you could possibly, once you've done that movement, you could then possibly do the arm movement. I don't know if in this animation here, I've got if I did that arm movement, I probably did. Let's have a look. I don't think I have actually. Not to worry. Yeah, so I've just done the swing of the arms. I haven't done any other movements. It looks very robotic, and this is the perfect place to start. And then you fine tune it afterwards. So this is the first part. Now, if we go further in an iteration, let's see how I developed it from that to the final thing. Let's have a look. I should have really named it a bit better than I have here. But let's have a look at see what let's pick 33. Great number. Lucky number, lucky 33. Let's see where that leads us. That's a bit too early, I think. Too late, should I say. Let's go halfway 20 and see what happens there. Yeah. Right. So again here, if you look, I'm still working on the legs. You can see because I've not even unhidden the rest of the body. But if you can see what I've done here, I've started on the movement of the pelvis, and I've also stretched out the frames here as well. So if you look at it, bang, bang, and the pelvis movement is moving, and it's moving from side to side. If we go to, you can see the track. If we look at that track movement, let's go to wireframe, and then if we look at it, you can see the movement of it going from side to side. And you really, at the moment, it's not. It should be really kind of equal, like, as in it should look symmetrical on on that track. It's not, so obviously that needed a bit of working on. It doesn't have to be perfect, I suppose. So you can see it moving from side to side now, and then what I did there from that iteration. Let's move on. So I sorted out that, but an important thing to work out. Let me just go back to 33. I want to just quickly show you something. Just in case you haven't, you ignored my advice and jumped straight into this tutorial without going the run cycle. If we go to the run, go back, let's go file open. I'm just having a cup of coffee. If you hear me zipping and you start moaning about it, I don't really care, to be quite honest. Because you're getting this tutorial for free. You ain't paying for this. So what are you moaning for? Well, the quality, you zipping, you're not professional. Well, start paying me and I'll be more professional. Right, anyway, that's enough of that. Unsubscribing people, that's not good. But hey ho, who cares? Right, anyway. If we, I want to go back a bit more. If we go file open, don't save. If we go to halfway max. Right. Now, the point I was going to get at, see at the moment we've got 11 frames. And when we play it, it goes really fast. the other thing that you have to think about is we don't want it to be like that. We want it to be um, slow down animation. Have more. Basically, we've done the keyframes, so now we want the in between frames. And with a 3D program, the beauty of a 3D program is you can create the in betweens without drawing them yourself. The computer does it for you. And that's the beauty of it, and that's the speed of it. A lot of people forget that. And anyway, so if we wanted to big up, to make this range so it's slower, because at the moment if we play that, it'd be like a comic, really fast walk. And we don't want that, so we go rescale time, and what we want to rescale it to, say 36. I find 36 for walk cycle works. The other thing, right, here's another thing, let's go through this, because this is important. Another thing that you want to do is when you're doing the walk cycle, I find it easier to set up in 3ds Max. You set up your frames, set up as frame, not frame ticks or all that. Set up frames, set up to PAL, active viewport speed, just normal 1 point loop, and this kind of setup will be fine for it. Again, these same principle you can be used in Blender or Maya. Anyway, let's go back to rescale time, and we want to rescale that time to 36. And we go OK. Now, if we look at the animation now, see that? Now, it's not perfect. When you do the rescale of time, don't think you're gonna get your animation perfect. It's not. This allows you then you, after you've done the rescale of time, you would then get in there and start working on the tweaking of it and getting it right. You know, so that is the next stage. But you rescale the time after you blocked out the keyframes, and you can adjust the time and etc. So if we go back to our, let's then go back to the finished animation, and I'll just talk about the progress of how I worked on it. So obviously, if we look again, and let's play this animation, because it's so good. No, it's just okay. It's not that good. It's not. It's acceptable, I think. Right. Let's click on that. So if we look at this animation, and obviously the first thing I sorted out is I worked on the legs first. So I worked on the legs, as I said to you, and got that movement positioning right. And again, I used tape measures for placement of the legs. So we got the placement of the legs using tape measures, so you know where it is. And another important part when you're using biped is, this is an important thing to look at. And again, I go through this in the run cycle tutorial. But I'll go through it again now, because as I say, some people might have ignored the run cycle and just gone straight into this. This is very important. Now, see that key here? That's set planted key. That's your sliding key, and that's your free key. Now, these are important for your feet movement and to get it right. So this would be a set planted key. So you click on there for your set planted. The next key up would be a sliding key. So it's your leg sliding. So you'd set that as a sliding. And then the next one, what do you reckon that would be? Yeah, you guessed it. Gold badge for you, sliding key. And again, the next one will be a sliding key. Then the next one up, because if you see that leg here, if you look at it, it goes up in the air. So that would be a free key, because it's floating. So free key. So the computer doesn't try and lock it to the ground or lock it to a sliding plane. So that would be a free key. And what would the next would be? You guessed it again, another gold badge for you, a free key. And then that next one would be a free key again. And then that, when it contacts, that would be a planted key. Yeah? And the same principle applies for the other leg. So you, again, I'm not going to go through it again, you should roughly got the drift of it now. If you haven't got the drift of it, then again, check out my my run cycle tutorial, because I go through it a little bit better in that. Right. Anyway, so I did the legs first, and then after I've done the legs, I looked at the torso. I did the animation for the torso. If you look at it, again, you got that twist in there, and then a twist in the top of the clavicle area. You know, the counterbalancing them. And once I got that done, I then moved on to the arms. I got the swing right. Again, getting that tweaking right is not as easy as you think. A lot of messing about. Let's say I personally find walk cycles very hard to do a half decent one. So you then work on your arms. The next step you do is you work on your head, because the head is one of the last things you work on, and the head is the secondary motion. So let's look at the head here, and then zoom in a bit. And then if you look, it's a kind of counterbalancing as we play an animation. The head's kind of bobbing around and shit. So if you look at it, it bobs around, and that's the secondary motion. So you could offset the keys from the other keys to give it that illusion as a secondary motion. And the very last thing I did is, because this is it's a secondary animation, is the ponytail. And if you look at that, and that's the very last thing you do, you know. Again, this was just because I'm very rusty in my animation. I used to be a lot better. I used to be, I would like to say, industry standard. Now I've fallen off the wagon a little bit. But you can see the ponytail as your secondary animation. So they're the key principles and steps to take when you're tackling an animation. One of the most important things to do. Don't try and do everything from your eye or whatever. Get some reference. It's not cheating or whatever. Get some reference. It really does help. Get that Preston Blair book. I highly recommend it. I don't get any money for recommending it, but I just think it's one of the best animation books out there, in my humble opinion. Right, guys, with a bit of luck, you've learnt something from this, and don't forget, subscribe and like. It feeds the eBay algorithm. And one more thing, never be a slave to the algorithm. Right, guys, I'm out. Laters. Good. Bye.